Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down the big ideas. And today, we're digging into a pretty wild claim that one single week, yep, just 5 days, could be a huge turning point for the economy, deciding where the next wave of wealth is gonna be made. Okay, so let's really unpack that for a second. The source here isn't just saying it's gonna be a bumpy week in the market. No, they're framing these next few days as a critical moment where trillions of dollars are literally on the move, creating a brand new set of winners and losers. So what's the deal? Why all the drama? Well, according to the source, it's not just one thing. We're talking about a triple threat of events all slamming together at the same time, creating what they call a potential Category 5 storm for the markets. All right, so let's pull these three forces apart piece by piece and see exactly how they're connected and why their convergence this week is so critical. First up, the big guns. We've got earnings reports from 5 of the most powerful, most influential companies on the entire planet. And look, their performance isn't just about their stock price, right? The source makes the case that they're a live, real-time barometer for the health of the entire global economy. And just to give you a sense of the scale we're dealing with here, $12 trillion. That's the combined value wrapped up in just these 5 names. I mean, think about that. It's an absolutely mind-boggling concentration of economic power. And this chart, it just lays it all out, plain and simple. Together, these companies make up a full quarter of the entire S&P 500. Let that sink in. 1 out of every $4 invested in the U.S. stock market is riding on how these companies do. Yeah, and because their impact is so massive, the source uses this really powerful analogy. It's like, when these giants do well, the whole market can take a deep breath. But if they stumble, they can literally suffocate it. So let's take a quick look at what each of these breaths actually tells us. You see, each one of these giants gives us a clue about a different part of the economy. Microsoft, that's our window into corporate spending on AI and the cloud. Apple, that's a direct read on the global consumer. Are people spending or pulling back? Then you have Google and Meta, which tell us everything about the giant digital ad market. And of course, Amazon gives us a look at global supply chains and the huge demand for cloud computing. Okay, now let's add the second major force into the mix, the Federal Reserve. You know, the folks who basically control the money spigot for the entire economy. And the argument here is that they're about to flip a massive switch. The source uses a really great analogy to explain this. Think of quantitative easing, or QE, as turning the money printer on. It floods the system with cash, pumps oxygen into the market, makes money cheap, and that usually pushes asset prices way up. But quantitative tightening, or QT, that's the complete opposite. It's like they're sucking the oxygen right out of the room. And this is the really crucial part. After tightening the screws for so long to fight inflation, the source claims the Fed is getting ready to do a complete 180. They're getting ready to turn those printers back on, maybe flooding the system with $1.5 trillion in new cash. Why? To keep the economy from grinding to a halt. And that brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, and honestly, maybe the most unpredictable one of all: politics. We're talking about a super high-stakes meeting between the leaders of the United States and China. You know, after years of back-and-forth trade wars and tension, what happens in this one meeting could instantly change the mood of the entire global market. And we're not just talking about tariffs here. The source argues that whole global supply chains are basically hanging in the balance. I mean, everything from our access to rare earth minerals for our phones, to the future of AI, to who controls semiconductor manufacturing. The point is, if these two can just find enough common ground to keep business flowing, it could unleash this huge wave of relief across the globe, and you better believe the markets would react. So you've got these 3 massive forces: big tech, the Fed, and geopolitics, all crashing into each other at the same time. So what's the big takeaway here? Well, the source is really clear. This isn't about panicking. It's about understanding something called the shakeout phase. And what is that exactly? Well, it's described as that moment of peak chaos, peak fear. It's that point where investors get so spooked that they just hit the sell button, and a lot of the time, that's right before things are about to turn around. And this is the absolute core idea of the whole argument. During a shakeout like this, that money doesn't just evaporate. Nope, it just moves. It moves from the people who are panicking to the people who actually see what's going on beneath the surface. And that really brings us home. The point, according to the source, isn't about having a crystal ball and trying to predict the future. It's about understanding the map of the storm you're in. It's about positioning yourself to navigate the waves
instead of just getting thrown around by them.
And that leaves us with the final question this source wants you to ask yourself. When the storm hits and everyone else is running for cover, are you going to be the one panicking or the one who's positioned? Thanks for joining us.